George.
Louis, whenever you're ready, let's go ahead and go.
First one is just the whole.
Jennifer, Anna,
Yes.
how are you today? Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
Tony?
Good, I can see this. See it, good. Second. Okay. Are you ready?
Very good. Let's call the meeting to order. The date of the next hearing is May 23rd. This room at 8:30 a.m. With that, could we swear on the staff? Who's here from the staff other than Louis? Anyone?
Just me.
Do you raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. And next, let's do the roll call, please.
Sure. Steve Whitman,
Here.
Mike Luss, not here. Bob Loverson. Here. Jana Maniaci,
Here,
Tony Slanik,
Here.
Trudy Bartley, not here. Otto Beatty,
Here.
Jennifer Rittler.
here,
We have a quorum.
Very good. Would you go over the overview of the hearing format, please, Louis?
Yeah, so the way the hearing is going to take place is that city staff will present application materials. Applicants will be sworn in and asked to present any additional materials. Additionally, we welcome speakers from the audience to speak if they have any comments, but we ask them to come to the podiums in the front of the room to speak and limit their discussion to 3 minutes. And commissioners will discuss the case and ask questions if needed.
Very good. I guess with that, we're ready for the first case, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting,
So,
which is February
Second.
28th? And then there's a second. So there's a motion and a second. Any comments, questions, additions, deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motions are, or the minutes are approved, please.
okay.
Now we'll try the first case, please.
All right, let's keep going. So the first case is 204 East Main Street. Pull it up there on the map. And I also did a site visit of the location. So here we go, 204 East Main Street. Its location is this narrow parcel right here, just the light colored portion, not the dark colored. Here next to the JC, between the JC Arms and 4th Street. Site visit pictures. Here we go. So this is the parcel right here where this blue car is parked. See its location, it's just in a bunch of surface parking. Here's a close-up of the exact parcel. It's the Spenston area and the lighter asphalt. This is looking south at that same parcel. You can see over here is the forgot the name of that building, but that development over there. Here you can see looking southeast. Here you can see looking southwest. This is looking directly west. You can see surface parking, some larger buildings behind there. This is looking directly east at the neighboring parcel. This is looking east as well. You can see some of the buildings that are there. This is looking northwest. This parcel is also going to be coming up later on today for redevelopment. So with that, the applicant is proposing a 7-story residential building with 50 to 60 micro unit sized dwellings. The building will be situated on a 30-foot by 187-foot parcel currently utilized as a surface parking lot. The applicant is submitting 2 concept designs for the commission's review. Our analysis is that the guidelines state that surface parking has had a detrimental impact on the character of downtown, but those lots have provided an opportunity to accommodate new investment and development. Building height, scale, and design quality relate to the city's development goals for the broader downtown, while also addressing the context and compatibility of a proposed building with its more immediate surroundings. The guidelines encourage maximizing the investment potential of a given site, but stress compatibility with surroundings and creative solutions to any site-specific issues. Unique design expression is encouraged, and ground floors should create pedestrian interest and interaction. So in summary, the proposed north, south, and west elevations generally meet the guidelines. Staff encourage the applicant to incorporate artistic elements on the east elevation because it's a large fire-rated wall. The ground floor along South Young Street could also be enhanced to further pedestrian interest and interaction. Those are staff's observations. Issues could move forward how they see fit. And with that, we have some applicants here to present.
I would note that this is a conceptual review today, so please come on up. Would you identify yourself, please?
Yep, Steve Reynolds, Shift Collective, 15 East Gay Street, Suite 2A, Columbus, Ohio, 43215.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So say, I do.
I do.
Thank you very much.
And then I'll pull this up that you can let me know if you want me to go slide by slide or if you just want me to go through the measures.
Sure. We can, and I'll try to keep it brief. Obviously, we've looked over the what we've submitted, and then I have a few additional comments just based off of the staff report as well. So if you don't mind moving to the next couple of slides. Obviously, we've provided some additional photo context, which did help, I guess, align with what we're designing. You can see there's a lot of visual arts downtown that are in direct proximity to our site, which becomes relevant as we kind of talk about what we're looking at with that eastern facade. I'm not going to the next slide. We also, in the deck talked about a lot of the surface parking, which again is in the staff report, kind of alluding to the fact that there is definitely an overabundance of parking in this area. So we felt that it was a good application for us to look at a zero lot line without having parking on site. And then with adjacent housing as well, trying to look at different types of rental units, senior living condos, et cetera, that are in direct proximity. Slide. And then, yes, we did go forward with this with basically two concepts, really looking to solicit some sort of feedback as far as the direction we would be going forward with. Yes, it is a narrow lot. We have met with Discerning Gears and a few other folks to look at how we would obviously build on this site and construct this type of multifamily. The two concepts, obviously, there's one that is more of what I would almost call kind of deconstructed architecture. This one here is probably a little bit more straightforward with a combination of composite panels, concrete, and then obviously the first floor entry that would be against Main Street. There's of course the second floor, not second floor, the seventh floor patio space as well.
Sorry, I'm going to show
Oh, you're
you.
good.
Apologies. There you go. Go ahead.
Good. And then on the eastern facade, again, going back to that initial site investigation where we looked at a lot of the visual and applied arts that are around downtown, around the site specifically. The initial thought we were looking at was trying to activate this with more of a physical type of art. And so the fins that are on the eastern facade, we were starting to play with what daylight looks like as the sun is in the south. And those fins would extrude with different shapes or different depths, how they could then apply shadow across that facade. So again, in lieu of being a static art piece, how do we do something here that changes throughout the seasons, changes throughout the day, night, and then the next slide would show just a visual representation of how we then also could utilize different lighting concepts to activate this facade at night. And so obviously the daytime is not showing you shadow, depths, etc. But this was the initial thought concept on that eastern facade where the firewall is. This is just a 3D view from that southwest corner. This is what I would probably then call our, more of our deconstructed concept. This one utilizing a different rain screen that would be over top of the main building facade, basically pulling up and away from the building. This would be utilizing a series again of composite materials. I think this would be listed as a black composite type wood that's being again pulled up off of the lighter fiber cement board that's underneath. As far as again the the building facade and concept and how this is situated. It's the exact same floor plan, same, 50 to 60 units that are available here with the same location for amenity spaces that are on the upper floor and then storage space on the lower floor. This facade obviously is, that's again using the veil being pulled up to try to create some sort of visual interest on this facade. And then this had a similar application for the night view where we were looking to utilize lighting to try to activate that facade. Next slide. Another rendering of that view. And then these are just basic floor plans as you go up to the building. Based off of staff comments, there was a couple additional, items that we wanted to comment on. One, yes, the first floor, the plan would be, and speaking with our client, that they would be plumbing this so that retail would be accessible at this level at some point. Knowing that Young is an alley, making sure that we get safe pedestrian access and entrance into that off of Young Street would be something we would need to work through. But again, the plan all along was this first floor space would be set up in such a way that it could be utilized for retail space and or storage. That I have already forgotten the second thing I wanted to mention based off of the staff comments.
I have a question about what you just said, if that's okay, if I could answer that now.
Yes.
It was interesting because when I looked at the plan, it looked like, well, on that ground level floor, if you pushed those storage units back to the east wall, then you would have a corridor in the front, and that would allow you to maybe have some punched openings or even brick glass or something where you could activate that level. But it sounds like you have them at the west facade because you have that potential then to use those as commercial space.
Correct. And I do think in the upcoming months and in collaboration with staff and our client, we could work through, an amenable solution there where, as you're speaking to this as well, we might be able to solve the pedestrian issue by actually pushing into the eastern facade, creating additional pedestrian access along that western component too. So, but yes, the plan was with that lower level to be able to create some sort of amenity spaces and or retail.
Other questions or comments for the applicant? Comments?
Is there a
thoughts?
reason to have a corridor on the ground floor?
Right now, that was to gain internal access from north to south.
If you want retail though, you can
Absolutely.
make it full depth.
This looks like the building that's built on the leftover site after all the rest of the block is full.
Correct.
And I appreciate what you're doing on the blank wall because otherwise, I assume a building could be built there at some point. And, but it probably won't happen right away. So doing something creative, I think is a good idea. You've asked our opinion, so I'll give you mine. The deconstructed one doesn't do much for me. It seems contrived. Seems like kind of thing you get when you say I want another alternative, but you've already got one design. And I think the other one is actually very handsome. I think that the little block sticks out, makes it distinctive, and I think it could be a good addition to the city.
Thank you.
Other thoughts? What are the comments?
I really like concept one a lot better than concept two. What are the fins made out of?
Right now, it'd be like an aluminum.
Okay.
Yeah. And then obviously working with lighting designers, if they need to retrofit that or come with a different solution, but as of right now, it was assumed to be an extruded aluminum.
Would they be like different colors or?
It could be. The first concept we'd have was just playing more with the depth and size of them so that again, when you have that south light, it can sort of change what you see on that eastern facade.
How deep are they?
Again, we're trying to explore that through lighting studies and try to see how much of an impact we can really
You don't
have.
really have any site to work with, do you?
Correct.
You
Right
have a
now,
setback from the side lot?
it's 0 setback.
Well,
So the
I didn't even
fence-
know if you could put the fin under
Fence
the
out.
other lot line, so.
Right.
You can hinge them, so when the new building comes,
It's correct.
Okay, any other thought? Does anybody like alternative two? I mean, just to get to the.
No.
I like one best. Anybody thought?
Yes, I think one is stronger. I think I have some issues with drip lines on concept two, just generally. Yeah, I do like the treatment of the east elevation and what you're trying to achieve, and it's obviously, it's blank wall.
Sure.
I think, yeah, it's a great location for public art, even within the texture of the concrete,
Mhm.
reveals or textures, making it more dynamic, could be other ways to achieve that.
Absolutely.
I think what you're hearing from the group is there's an inclination toward your alternative one. I think there are some comments about doing something that can enliven that east wall in some form or another. And I don't hear any negatives on the thing here. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say I agree with everyone. I prefer one as well because I think the design choices are architectural and they're integrated into the project as opposed to maybe seeming it more like a cosmetic overlay. And I like the fact that the choices you're making, you're saying, I want the fins or I want something, if something is happening that's engaging, maybe it's happening from a source or, things like that that are happening naturally or integrated. But I think on the east elevation, it'd be careful that that can carry the project all the time. And that, like what Jennifer was talking about, looking at other ways, maybe with those panels, maybe gradations of color or texture, because make sure that there won't be certain angles or times of day where that's just going to look like a monolithic wall.
Right.
I think the night is very successful, the night elevations, but the day, I think, just be careful. And then on the west, if, let's say, you decide you're not going to have retail or the retail is not accessed from the front, think about strategies where you could enliven that strip on Young.
Mhm.
Because even though I think when you look at it conceptually, it's nice to have that monolithic base, but in actuality, it's a prominent facade and it's long. And so I think we want to have some kind of transparency there.
Yeah, and I remember now what the second staff comment was just it, reacting to, there was the comment about the eastern facade and us looking to activate it using more of something more integrated into the architecture in lieu of more of a static applied, which was where we were trying to work with it. Our hope would be in working with staff over the next several months, we could make sure that we have a solution that we feel would be acceptable to the commission.
Where's the right of way line on Young Street? Is it on the curb face or is it 3 feet back?
I think it's 3 feet back. I have to go back and look.
So you're proposing to put a bunch of plant material within the right of way?
I know that we were at the alley, and I unfortunately don't have that at the top of my mind right now. I know we've looked at the right of way line and the fact that we're coming from the middle of Young Street, but I can't remember exactly where that right of way is.
Yeah, I think to move the concept forward, you gotta figure out where
Yes.
that is and get with DPS.
Yeah. Yeah, we met with Structure Point previously to look at this as well. So it should be a relatively quick answer. I think we have looked at that. I just can't recall off the top of my head exactly where it lies.
Okay, very good. Are there other comments, thoughts, questions, anything?
I was gonna add what Bob was getting to, that I think as well as the lot line might be a hindrance on putting fins. in
Right.
theory. So at that point, we might just push, I prefer that, but otherwise it might be just more of an artistic application.
Okay, thoughts, I think that's,
Thanks, Bill.
I have one
Good.
more quick.
yes,
one
go
on that.
ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, I would also be interested in hearing more about any sustainable strategies and energy efficient features, as well as, kind of a lens to evaluate the concepts.
Sure.
Okay, others? Great, thank you
luck.
very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next case. Next case is at 267, 283 East Spring Street. Pull that up here on the map for you. It is this surface parking lot at the intersection of Spring and Nielsen. It extends, these kind of two areas here. This that looks grassy, now it's gravel, but it does stop right here on the South Lafayette. So the applicant is proposing a 172,800 square foot, 7-story mixed-use building with 132 units. There will be 112 structured parking spaces and 2,000 square feet of ground floor retail. The upper residential portion is stepped back and incorporates a south-facing amenity courtyard. The majority of the materials will consist of brick and concrete skin. The staff analysis, for the most part, is the same as the previous one, surface parking, and our development goals. I will say one additional thing is that public art is a critical component of the built environment and adds much to the city's quality of life. So the proposal generally meets the guidelines related to building height, ground floor uses, and parking. Staff would encourage the integration of an element of public art in the proposal. And then I did take a site visit. I'll pull it up here. So this is the site looking southwest. See, it's this lot here and this lot here that's fenced in. This is looking at that easterly lot looking south towards the alley. This is the western lot looking south towards the alley. This is looking south. This is looking east. This is what's directly to the east on Spring Street. Here you can see looking southeast, 2 parcels, parking garage in the back. This is the alley with the new parking garage there. This is what's directly to the southwest, this northern structure. This is behind parcels kind of to the southeast. This is what's directly to the north, this 1-story commercial structure. And this is what's directly to the northwest, another service parking lot. With that, we do have an applicant who's here to present.
Morning. Could you
Morning.
identify yourselves for the record, please?
Yes, John Rewald with Rewald Development.
Okay,
And Mike Siriano with MBBJ.
great. Would you raise your right hand? You swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So say, I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
How do I spell Siriano? S-I-R-I.
SURIANO.
Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to be here and share more about what we're planning on Spring Street. I kind of want to set the table briefly before I turn it over to Mike to walk through the design presentation. This area is really unique in that it's the intersection of multiple neighborhoods. We've got the warehouse district to the north with its historic character. There's immense potential there and a mix of uses today. To the south, we have the Discovery District anchored by a growing resident base, some institutional anchors, Columbus State, CCAD, and some cultural institutions, and then an emerging entertainment and dining corridor on 4th. Despite all of these good things happening around Spring Street, for as long as I've been in Columbus, has sat out as kind of a sore thumb, and that development hasn't made its way there. So we're excited, and we believe our project's going to be catalytic and hopefully spur additional investment on this corridor. One of the ways that we're going to try and do this, and Mike will hit on this as well, Nielsen. Nielsen is this great connector, wide sidewalks, pedestrian in nature, back to all the investment, retail and residential along neighborhood launch. And then to the north, we're really excited. I walked by the site yesterday, the key that's opening up as part of the warehouse district. I really see that as something that's going to be a neighborhood hub. So that's one effort. Our team has spent a lot of time. One of the guiding principles of this project was focus on the first 20 feet, integrate this project into the neighborhood. This needs to be designed for the pedestrian. And so I think we've done a great job of that. But I won't steal your thunder. I'll let you walk us through, and we welcome comments, dialogue afterwards. So,
By the way, I would note this is also a conceptual review. So, thank you.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, John. So I was just gonna to try and walk you all conceptually through the submission. So I think we can kind of go through some of these. One of the things that we try to hit on, we obviously, each project has unique parameters in terms of pro forma logistics that we're trying to hit. It obviously has a unique context and then a unique vision. I think John touched on the idea that this is, intended to be kind of catalytic for the warehouse district. as we look in and around to our neighbors and one of the kind of properties that I think we can feel can bring a lot of energy to the area. We go to the next slide. John mentioned, but this sits just south at the corner of Neilston and Spring. Our site's about 200 feet long by 150 feet deep. We have Lafayette Alley to the rear, and then 6th Street is separated by a property to our east. Go to the next slide. Lewis hit these fairly well just in terms of context. I think one thing to note here is that being out on the site, Spring Street feels pretty consistent through downtown and running east-west. And I mean that to say that at times it can feel pretty, unfriendly from a pedestrian standpoint. So one of the things that we're looking at both in the expression of the building as well as what we're trying to do at ground level helps to alleviate that. I think Neilston feels more comfortable, and it's just contextually that's something that we tried to note as we were working through the design of the project. So go to the next slide. Things that we've looked in and around the district for just, obviously to the left, this is just kind of one example in our teams being out on site. There's a lot of kind of rich detail with regard to masonry and texture, and we say that all the time, but I think that's something that we're really interested in terms of how to bring that to our project. Staff brought up public art. And this is just one moment, but there's several kind of indications of some really robust public art in the area just with proximity to CCAD. That historical image on the right is the Ice House, which has had some difficulties as of late, but I think the character and nature of the warehouse district is something that we're interested in as well, and how to maybe bring that into the project. So I talked about details. I think in terms of demographic, we're also looking at, kind of a more mature, customer base, and as well as something that maybe people that see value in this part of downtown, and making sure that the architecture and environment reflects that. And I talked a little bit about texture as well. Go to the next slide. John mentioned, but we're targeting 132 units, 7 stories, and all the code implications and things that go with that. So these are some just larger goals. In terms of organization, I'll kind of walk you through the planning. So we go to the next slide. Sectionally, one major thing to point out that you'll see this kind of reflected in some of the elevational studies is that we're trying to stay under that 75-foot threshold for high rise. We have 2 stories of podium, 5 stories of stick frame residential above that. And the building also looks at kind of extents of a datum. John talked about a kind of focusing on that ground level experience that and what that does in terms of scaling the environment. And so we're also pulling some of those units as we get up on top of the podium to the property line, but then pulling the units back as we work our way up. So it helps to start to step the building in section and create those kind of thresholds for height. So if we keep going, our site is, when we look at 200 feet by 150 feet, it's pretty tight, especially as we think about going and maximizing the parking for the units. And right now we're looking at accessing the garage with a speed ramp off of the south side, ingress and egress off of Neilston. We've in conversations with the city, we want to try and keep curb cuts off of Spring Street, and really focus that for retail amenity and lobby for the residents. Go to the next slide. This kind of works its way up. So that 2-story, we have obviously a 2nd story fronting the garage on Spring, and the 2nd level of the garage. And we're looking at coupling kind of double height space as part of the retail, as well as amenity and resident business. And so this is, you can kind of see it in there, is that what I was mentioning before in the at the north and west facades, those dotted lines, that's where the building starts to step back. But you can see in this plan at podium level, we're pulling all the way out. this unit, mix and demising, we're still very early. It's why we're in for conceptual review. So this will continue to get refined as we go forward. You can see the courtyard off of the south end, really thinking about, Jennifer brought up what, sustainability and what we're doing in terms of, project typology. I think simple moves like just trying to orient the outdoor spaces on the project, where they best are related for our hemisphere. And so we wanted really to preference that courtyard to the south, where it's going to get the best sunlight to those inboard part of the overbuild. And then as we go up, you can see where the building starts to pull back, step back, and do have some different moments with regard to how those units are written out. You can continue to the next plan. So continuing to kind of reference different unit types and different opportunities there. If we go to the expression portion, this is where we started to look at lots of different examples. Certainly, we're trying to draw contextually off of what's in Columbus and what's in and around the warehouse district, but also globally, what we see in and out in the world. And these are some examples of not only color and texture, but also different ways of integrating, maybe a couple different construction types with regard to how we pair masonry and something that's maybe a little bit more streamlined above it. And so these are things that we're going to be continuing to draw from as we go forward. Conceptually, I think we're thinking of the elevation and kind of measure of the project as this sleeve that sits at ground level that kind of fronts a building that's stepped and pulled up inboard. So that darker material in this kind of cartoony diagram represents that overbuild, but also the fact that we've got these different ways of articulating the retail garage amenity and some of those deeper units, all the way up to level 5. And then some early elevations of how we're thinking of each facade. I think these continue to be refined, looked at as those units start to move in and out, as well as we get new information, discover new things. But this language gives us an opportunity to really think about articulating that 2-story space in the podium at grade, but then also leveraging maybe smaller punched openings as we get on those first 3 levels of the units, and then thinking about that darker material as it steps back as to something that's maybe different in terms of the way we articulate balconies, windows, etc. And these are some, again, early renderings. I think largely what we're aiming to do with the ground floor articulation in terms of the brick is think about, I talked about that texture and detailing before, but also when we have major moments of entry or cuts into that, whether it's for garage, corner retail space, resident entry, and the way that those masses come together, we're really starting to try to think of larger building scale moves that enable those scoops or cuts to really emphasize those, while the maybe units that are more in line with regard to the structural bay or as part of the units start to become a little bit scaled down, smaller, etc. And these are just some examples and kind of close-ups of some of those. I think, still a lot to be done, but I think, it's starting to get there in terms of the articulation.
I'm sorry, I lost my place. That view, that's Spring Street.
That's Spring Street, yes. You'll notice that we do have some stipulations with regard to fire because we're occupying that eastern property line. Just with, we need to keep anything where we're limited in percentage of openings. It's one of the reasons why the building steps back on the east side as well. So it gives us the ability to do that. But I think also that east facade, some of the staff comments were around art and the importance of that being integrated. Potentially that could be a location for at ground level, especially for something like that.
Mike, you made the statement earlier that Nielsen is more pedestrian friendly, but you have nothing pedestrian friendly in your building on Nielsen. Right?
Yes.
The retail and so forth on Spring Street, which is not very friendly. But maybe it'll get better if we really start driving 25 miles an hour, and we'll see how that works.
Yeah.
So I get that, but it's just, when I looked at the plan, I reacted to what you said about Nielsen, and Nielsen is and can be a really nice street.
Mm-hmm.
But all we're going to see is parking garage. Had you looked at, could you get into the garage from Lafayette? Yeah, is there any?
We are studying eliminating that second curb cut. I think ultimately where we land when we're in front of you for final approval will be one curb cut on Nielsen and an extension of that retail
Mhm.
onto Nielsen. That's something that we're actively studying and I think where we'll land. That's
That'd be great. You just pull it around the corner somehow, maybe.
Yep, absolutely. That's a great comment, Bob.
I had a comment, I think two major, not major things, but two main things that I'm thinking about. One is that, and you had a description of your goals in the packet, and you said that one thing was you get inspiration from the short north, or that you want this to be an alternative to the short north. And I think and that you are starting to achieve that, but I think as you're looking at the Spring Street facade, and even if you turn it to Nielsen, which I think is important, think about ways that you can build character and some variety and diversity, because I think the strength of something like the Short North is that there is a lot of character. It wasn't built all at one time. And I think you have a marvelous concept, but I think it's like maybe articulating those bays and finding ways to add detail or public art moments or things like that, that give it that uniqueness. And also, because you have your lobby on Spring, is there a way to maybe, like with your arches, maybe make that arch a wider arch, or do something to make that more of a focal point or delineate it in some way?
You're reading our mind to a degree. That's another study that's a very good comment. We're looking at ways that we can demarcate and break up the different uses on Nielsen at pedestrian level better with moves, whether it's detailing or differentiation in some of the storefront and how we're addressing that. And I think big picture, when we're in front of you again, we've got the full landscape entourage as well here. We're looking at ways to really soften Spring Street and have our buildings spill out here. I agree with you. It's not there yet, but those are some things that we're certainly aiming to refine.
And then I just have one more thing, so I'll get it all out now.
Yeah.
The building behind, your larger tower. Is the intention that and I understand, the masonry portion is very beautiful and it's really very well detailed. And I know if you did too much with the back building, it would compete. But I think even if it's more of a subtle expression, I think, think of it more as how would this building be if it's a standalone structure? So it can still be subtle and not compete with the masonry, but I think every choice you make, maybe think of it as a standalone building, as well as how it looks with the masonry. And then that connection between the masonry and the building behind, and that depth of the masonry, what you want that expression to be. Do you want it to be a wall with glazing behind it, or do you want it to have some sort of depth? So those are the things that I'm thinking about.
Yep. Thank you for the feedback. We'll study that.
So the tower part is going to be stick built, is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Type 3 construction.
So one of the examples you showed what looks like it's a steel and glass kind of thing coming out of a warehouse or covering over or something. The lightness of that seemed really good to me. Probably not compatible with wanting to build it out of sticks, but I think the contrast between the black or the dark part of the building and the brick is very nice, and I encourage you to make it as light looking as you can.
You don't mean that in color, you mean that
No,
in
no,
mass.
it's a feel, yeah.
Yep. I think that's something that we're looking at, and just in terms of maintaining that level of, we want to create some distance between we certainly don't want them to be completely foreign to one another, right? But we do want to create compatibility between what's happening at grade and what's happening up above. But I think color is one of the ways we're investigating that. We're also looking at different ways of articulating balconies so that they feel a lot lighter. That I think will help with that. It's a kind of a student observation.
I'm kind of looking at this kind of to Jana's point, maybe also to Tom's point. If what you've got there right now is kind of one long stretch. But in a way, it'd be very easy if where you have your curves, where you go down to the 2-story section there, if you kind of took those out and you kind of went straight down, you could have a section here. There could be kind of a subtle difference. There could even be a slightly different tone of brick. And and then the center section where it's two stories, and then the others, it would almost read as perhaps three structures, which could be kind of interesting in a way. And then you've got three different things kind of going on. You've got a lobby, and you've got your amenity area, and you've got your retail stuff. And
I think the scale is, I would hate to break it up too much. I think. that
okay,
the-
so there's another thought.
The deconstructiveness of this one is much more sophisticated than a lot of them, and I think you can work with that to break the scale up without losing the fact this is almost a block-long building. I want to know where you're gonna get the sky hook to hold that corner up.
Yeah.
We're working through that.
Okay, are there other thoughts or comments?
Good conversation. I'm kind of thinking of Jana's comment about calling it the back building, right? And I know, you want it to speak like just as strong as the front building. So I think, yeah, but I think the framework is there for the articulation. I love the overall concept, and there's lots of different moves to be made in detail within the overall concept to move forward. So yeah, exciting project.
Other comments from anybody?
John,
trying to see if we
it's
can-
really great, like a really cool project.
Okay.
And then you have to address the streetscape on Spring.
Yep.
I think that that's gonna be critical to creating, slowing down traffic, to doing lots of things for your project, and how you articulate the design standards for downtown streetscape into this thing and create that rhythm within the architectural rhythm, get that locked down, and it'll be a great project.
Yeah, we're actively working with Corda, our civil and Realm, our landscape architect, with DPS to work through, existing, I think it's like a 5-foot right of way, which clearly we, can't navigate within downtown streetscape. Right now, we're at an 8-foot right of way, and we're studying, increasing that further so that we can get some of those planting beds in there. So, and I'm optimistic that, big picture, as this neighborhood continues to develop, at the city level, there'll be some consideration given to, enhancements on Spring Street, more broadly, and making it, in conjunction with all the work proposed at, Columbus State. And as these surface lots fill in, there's real potential here for this to be a vibrant, mixed use, neighborhood. We're excited about it. So,
It's a very handsome building. Job.
thanks, Tony.
Okay, other thoughts, comments?
I was trying to picture this building coming up out of the ice house, the ruins of the ice house, but I guess that's beyond the scope of this.
Okay, good. Any other thoughts?
I just had one
Okay.
question. What you created on that northwest corner is very interesting and dynamic. And how do you envision that being used? Do you see that as a double volume restaurant, or?
So we are talking to a user right now, destination, whether it's bar or restaurant, there'll be an announcement in the future, but that will be full volume height. And then within the building, we're looking at ways to create synergies where our amenity spaces, perhaps even on the second level, are looking into this space. And this really is going to be something signature that is special to this building. And then that relief, the other thing it does is working with DPS, making sure that we're addressing site distance triangles and everything like that, so people can safely turn off of Nielsen onto Spring. Then the one other thing, and Bob, this is to your point about Nielsen, we're also proposing to DPS that we have a bump out on that corner as well, similar to what happened at the industry project, to create more sidewalk space for folks to congregate, in the hope that our, retail offering can kind of spill out to that space as well. So, we hear you and got some work to do, but we're really excited.
Okay, good.
Great.
I think you've heard some comments. Thanks for bringing it in.
Yeah, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Steve, you want to ask if there was any members of the public?
Does anybody in the audience want to have anything to say? Thank you.
Yep, thank you all.
Yeah.
Okay. Final stage today is also a conceptual review. It is at 175 to 175 East Rich. Proposal will be more or less from this property line here over to here. So it would include Zettler Street, which they are proposing to vacate, and this would be the footprint of a building that is being proposed. I did do some site visits. A site visit. This is now this proposal does include demolition of 4 buildings. Here you can see it's this building here, this portion right here, not the taller portion, and then a garage in the back. See this building. And here's the third building. These buildings, as I indicate in the staff report, they were not on the 1921 Sanborns, so they were built at some point in 21 and 52. I'm getting that wrong, but whatever the next Sanborns were. You can see the view looking southeast. This is a view down the alley, Zettler. See Zettler Street, I suppose. Here is this upper portion here is kind of where the dividing line will be. So this building right here is what would be demolished. Here's a view of the back of that brick building, and here's the 4th building that would be demolished, would be this sort of warehouse. And here's the back of the easterly building, large service parking lot here. Here's looking south towards the Harlow. That's at Harlow. Here's this parking lot. This is looking to the north. This is looking to the east. Directly to the east is a gas station. See it there. This is looking to the northeast, some development in that area. Directly to the north is the Holiday Inn and a large service parking lot. And directly to the northeast is this site right here. I believe is the old Greyhound Center, which is slated for redevelopment as well. And here's the building directly to the west. This would be Main. And this is the building directly to the southwest, across from the alley. So, some details on the proposal. They're proposing a 19-story mixed-use building with 180 units. The proposal calls for a ground floor retail, commercial, structured parking, office space, and an amenity deck with a top floor restaurant. It is currently divided by Zettler Street. As I indicated, that's being reviewed for vacation by the city. So the 4 buildings were constructed between 21 and 51, although one of the buildings we discovered last night is actually from prior to the 1870s. It is kind of this taller, older building right here that is now, I can pull it here and just show it to you. It's been heavily modified. It has it's right there. This building is an older residential dwelling, and it appears on the 1891 Sanborn, 1891, I apologize.
But it's completely surrounded.
It's completely surrounded and has been modified, and all the details have been taken off the building. The downtown's the guidelines recognize that it's the region's most intense development where larger scale buildings are appropriate. Maximizing the investment potential of a given site is encouraged, but so is preservation of existing building stock. The guidelines encourage the commissioners to consider if demolition would allow for new development, which in their opinion is of greater significance to the character of the surrounding area. The guidelines also state that a COA should be issued for a proposed replacement use building prior to issuance of the demolition permit. Proposal generally meets the guidelines related to building height, ground floor uses, and parking. Commissioners will need to determine if the proposal would allow for new development, which in their opinion is of greater significance to the character of the surrounding area. And with that, we have a applicant.
The applicants come forward, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you identify yourselves for the record, please?
Yep, George Berardi, I'm Berardi Partners.
Stanley Lan, Wilson Brothers.
How do I spell your last name?
LANNIC.
Thank you.
Okay, is anyone else? Okay, would you raise your right hands? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say, I do.
I do.
Thank you very much.
And just one quick note, the presentation is going to be slightly different to change the color of the tower portion of the building
Okay,
from what you saw, but it was a slight modification.
that's all. Okay, great.
This is conceptual also.
Yes, conceptual.
But it's always tough following Michael, in his creative nature, isn't it? But regardless, we're here really to continue what everyone else is trying to do with downtown, which is repopulate, let's put it that way, repopulate the city. Some pretty wonderful examples of really of architecture. And I think that, you know, I read in Cranes yesterday about Cleveland, about how we're bringing more housing downtown. Of course, we're heavily involved in that area, but so we're now finally doing the same thing in downtown Columbus everywhere. There are challenges, obviously, matching and considering adjacencies to other architecture. Transportation is one thing that is being considered both on the north side, where Michael was with his project, together with where we are in terms of changing directions with traffic, new bus lines that are happening near both of our projects. So a lot of dynamic changes that are happening that are really helping everything come along with the city. I think that as we look at this first slide, again, it populates, you know, a nice portion of the site, and around us with Greyhound bus, together with where the Holiday Inn site is, that is being considered right now for other opportunities. We're looking at really populating the entire site. By that, we really will have to vacate Zettler, and we've already submitted for preliminary site compliance review to consider that and have other discussions, obviously, beyond just Zettler, to consider utilities and everything else that's involved. By the way, in terms of utilities, there are no major utilities that impact us other than the ones that are serving the buildings that are there. So we're not really changing, you know, the location of existing utilities. The important part about it is, again, that by removing the buildings that are behind the existing, maybe the next slide might help. By removing the buildings that are behind the existing buildings that now face 4th Street, it really creates maybe, we're really intending to create a small alley in that location for ourselves, for access to our building, but also provides access to those buildings that now have only access to South 4th Street, be it trash, be it deliveries, emergency egress. We're not calling it an alley, we're just calling it a passageway, as an access passageway that'll benefit everyone. If you really look hard, and I'm not quite sure that shows up really well in the surveys right now, but when we reviewed the surveys in detail, every one of those buildings really encroaches onto our property except one. So we're gonna stay with the encroachment. I mean, they aren't very deep, but they're 2 feet here, 5 feet there. So we're living with those encroachments, but so by actually pulling our building farther to the east, by about 10 feet off of what our property line is, it really creates several things. It creates this passageway, as I indicated, but it also promotes, you know, the idea of, well, it really helps with construction, obviously, as we start building that podium. We can go to the next slide, if you will. Massing diagram really is pretty important here, because what it does is shows us creating a large podium, which is largely occupied by parking, if you will. First floor level, if you go to the next slide, may show that we're populating the street. We're really reinforcing that statement in terms of wanting to really create that pedestrian interaction at East Church Street. That entire area, grade level, facing East Church Street, will be a commercial space. At this point, we're looking at, you know, probably a food venue in terms of maybe a small market. So that entire area will be populated in that regard. Probably a little cafe will maybe part of that space as well. The rest of the building, as you go up to the gray portion, will be a parking structure. And access will be really off of Young Street to the east. So we have only pedestrian access on the east side of on the west side of the property. Vehicular access will be either on East Church Street or off of Young Street. In fact, if we go, when we get to the actual building plan, you'll see that where our entrance is, we have some grade level parking together with a speed ramp that takes us up to the upper parking levels. Maybe the next slide. Again, one more. In terms of, the context, I think Louis covered it really as well as you can. We do have buildings, they have to be removed. I don't think there's anything that we feel is contributing to what the neighborhood is right now. It's really a cacophony of different things, materials, architecture, buildings that are in disrepair in some cases. And we're really trying to set a new standard really for this entire area, especially knowing, what could happen just north of us at the Holiday Inn site and possibly even at Greyhound Bus. So we're really starting to think in terms of holistically in terms of what we do now relative to what may come in the very near future with these other sites, which is why we want to really, to the extent that we did with this building, coming back with the parking collectively, where we're 204, 205 units of parking against 180 units of public space. Some of that parking, by the way, will really be support spaces for visitors and residential. And those, when you look at the site plan, if we flip over to the floor plan, first floor plan, this is the encroachment I was talking about, by the way. You can see the red line where we're encroaching onto our property. But as we go to the first floor plan, the next one, this one right here, shows the pink really is our commercial space. That may be modified slightly, only at the southeast corner where we may extend the lobby space. So again, as I indicated, the passageway on the west side of the property will be created. The traffic patterns with vehicular traffic will be primarily off of Young Street on the right side, on the east side of the property. And at the southeast corner, closer to Cherry Street, is where our main entrance for parking will be. That parking area will be at grade level. And again, that will be controlled, but that'll only be dedicated, again, for visitors and probably the users, to the extent that it's necessary, the users of the commercial spaces. We make a hard right once we enter the garage. We enter a speed ramp that really winds around and takes us, back up to the upper levels of the parking. But this floor plan really shows the pedestrian access off of Young Street, as you see at the light blue area with all of the elevators. And also an access will be continuing straight across to where Zettler once was, to our new passageway. So we can move on. We can skip a few slides. These are really slides that start to show the parking arrangement. The next level really that's relatively important to us is the sixth floor plan, which is a combination of office space strictly for management purposes for our own use, together with some co-working spaces dedicated for the residents, for the buildings and conference areas. But additionally, all the areas south of the light blue will be public spaces dedicated to the residents, including some private dining areas, meeting spaces, the amenity deck, which will include a pool. And I think you heard before about how sites are being used to where we're maximizing our views. We're south at this point. The pool will be on the south edge. So the entire south edge of that 6-story will be open space. Great visibility, great lighting for us. The next floor is, really stacked. It's a combination of studio units, 1-bedroom units, and 2-bedroom units at the corner. Yeah, the one before that shows it. Sorry. Well, that's okay. So it's this one. And this is basically the residential tower where we have our dwellings. The top floor, as we mentioned, will be a restaurant or lounge area of sorts. And the unique quality of this space to other spaces around the city is that this has a 360 view all around the top floor of the building. So at the 19th floor, we have really great view, southeast, west, north. And that will be a glazed component, entirely glazed component. Now we can move up to the elevations. We created a fairly strong base in masonry. When we get to the material sheet, we're considering that as a solid masonry base with a Roman style brick, which you all know what it is. I mean, we have some samples here to show you what we're trying accommodate, but, and it picks up some of different characteristics, arches, again, maybe in the city, in different locations, different buildings, but we're really not trying to match anything that's close to us. There really isn't anything to match that's really close to us or come close to vernacular that's there. So we went on our own. The tower portion is a reinforced concrete panel material. Together with, we'll have a Quaker glazing system for the entire building. And what you'll notice, even on the previous slide, you'll notice the X shapes. Those will be formed C-channel, galvanized C-channel framework. That'll really be an expression of what, really is a transitional element between solid masonry base to the lighter tower above it. And we've captured that and brought it up to the top at the roof level. The idea of sloping the roof pitches, which we've done before, is really we're capturing the west light. As you look to the right side of that right elevation, that is the west of our building. So it captures, brings in a little bit more light for us. All the units, by the way, will have balconies or French balconies. Some of the studio units, we have half of the studio units will have standard balconies, fully accessible, obviously, and some of them will be provided with French balconies. So everybody will have an outdoor, sort of an outdoor space. Let's see, can we move on and show some of the different images? We don't need the unit plans. Starts to give you an idea of where we are. This is the material sheet that we were talking about. The panel is a reader panel that's been used before. Again, it's a reinforced concrete panel that works really, really well for us. It comes in so many different shapes and sizes that what we're choosing to do on the larger elements, we're trying to really allocate those larger panels for those spaces, so we don't have a great deal of joint work. But anyway, it's a flexible material for us to use in so many different sizes. The Quaker windows, again, that we've used so many times, really will be manufactured to whatever our specifications, will be. Our door systems will be the same, will be the Quaker product. The rails for the balconies, again, we're trying to create some transparency there as well. We have glass rails with light frames. And that's really about it. I mean, there may be some precast elements that are synthetic materials, but for the most part, it's solid masonry, and then the reader panels, which is a concrete panel and glazing. So we can move.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, and I apologize, Steve. As we looked at it initially, we looked at a darker tower portion, same material. We thought we'd have a different look with that.
This is a nice conceptual hearing, and we would encourage tweaking in the process.
Again, this rendering is a typical rendering where, we're really attempting in every respect to really create the transparency at street level all around. Again, populate the street effectively. And we are working with Realm. They've developed some exciting plans for us at grade level. And they're also working with us on some really, truly exciting ideas for the amenity decks as well.
Exciting.
Thoughts, guys, comments for the applicant?
I have a couple of questions. I noticed on one of your renderings at that corner, I think it's the northwest corner where you were just showing that column. There was a very interesting column that looked like a large face.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's an idea that you have that you're going to be developing, or if that was just some artistic license for the rendering and you're not going to pursue that. Because personally, I thought that was wonderful and added so much to the ground level.
I'll tell you where it came from. We were working in Miami with some friends of ours, and I had dinner at Philip Stark's buildings, and that was a treatment in all the columns.
Oh, okay.
Under the garage area. And so I borrowed it from Stark. That was just a placeholder.
Okay.
But the intent is, I think that Stanley can speak to it.
Yeah, the intent is, okay, if you look at that corner, we intend that to be a art exhibition area that we, in the future, will be working with a local artist. So that corner is preserved solely for artist exhibitions. Yeah, we may do something like that as you have already seen, or something else. Yeah,
Okay,
that's a placeholder though.
But I'm a local artist that's gonna do it.
Yeah.
and I also wanted to ask you, your residential entry is on the east
Yeah.
side, right, on Young? And and in looking at the plan, that makes perfect sense why you would do that and have a separate entry. But I think as you develop the project, the challenge will be, because you also, it looks like you also have some generator there and other equipment where there might be louvers, and then you have
Yeah,
a garage door. I think the challenge will be, how do you make that street experience residential? And how do you make that facade not look so much like back of house, but but a very engaging facade that will draw people to that and encourage you.
Basically, the question is, should it be on Ridge Street? I
well,
guess.
You know, we're that too.
well, the problem with, Steve, the problem with Janet, your point is, I mean, well taken. And Steve, you know, Rich Street, the problem is that we're trying to get to a small market segment, which won't, but we would have to bifurcate that entire space or take it to the corner. And commercial outlets like markets really really love the corners for different opportunities. So we decided to really take it to Young Street. But then the answer, to Janet's point, is that, yeah, I mean, that'll be populated in a way that it won't appear as though we are back of house. I mean, the treatment will be continuous from, I mean, it isn't fairly reflected. We're still evolving those details, but we thought we'd try to really capture the major point, which is, you know, East Ridge. However, we do have to wrap it and make it continue to where it doesn't feel, as you said, back of house.
I'd like to pick up on that, though. I think that entrance, the commercial entry could be a grand corridor going in with glass on either side into the commercial area, and the elegant entrance to the residential at the back of it. It takes some rearranging at the core a little bit, but I think it could be really nice. And somehow the residential being relegated to Young Street doesn't feel right.
We've built some other buildings that way. Even here, where we've had the entrance, the main entrance to the side, and it seems to work pretty well. It doesn't.
Well, people can find it. I mean,
there hasn't been any pushback to them. The first one, the smallest one, actually was at Grandview Third, where we have the entrance tucked to the side. And that works really well, where we have the commercial really on the front. But the problem that we have here is bringing in a user for that space who doesn't really want to be split.
Or your thought is there would be one user along the entire front porch?
I mean, in some markets.
Yes, so that our goal is, because we feel like in downtown environment, so many years people asking for a grocer, or urban market. So our goal here is putting a nice urban market at front of our building.
Okay.
To answer your question, Janet, is we're working with Rome so that, okay, if let's say we lead our tenants to the Young Street, right now you look at almost like not so nice. However, the landscaping we're gonna design will elevate that experience by putting in nice pavers and planters so that people don't feel like they're being treated inferior. So we elevate that experience all the way through almost the back of the house. That's how we treat it.
What would the address of the building be? Is it a Rich Street address or
It would
is it
be
a
a
Young?
Rich-
Rich Street, okay.
The one other thing that we are doing and will be doing is that part of the elevation by the commercial space will be pulled in a little bit. It won't be sitting right at the right of, or right at our setback. So it'll be pulled in a little bit, so it'll be a little bit more inviting. Young Street is fairly narrow, I'm even aware of that. And so by pulling that portion in just slightly, I think it'll broaden that opening for us and really kind of pull us into it. And again, it's private, it's a private development, it's not necessarily a public, a building, where if I had a public building, I'd be more inclined to really feature the entrance. That's something to think about as well. But I think the key point here is, how do we address it to where, I mean, exactly to your point, how do we address it to where it doesn't appear back of house? And I think to Stanley's point, working with Realm, we're coming back in along Ridge and turning the bend. Actually, it turns the bend on both sides, not just on the east side. It'll turn on the west side as well. Yeah, I think you might have noticed that where you saw the little sculptural element, that was really a fairly large notched area, recessed area. So I think that we're trying to still investigate those possibilities, but I think that the landscaping is going to do a great deal for us in terms of helping to define
George,
better.
what if you studied making it more of a two-story element or something, the architecture?
Yeah,
It seems like it's and look at the elevation, it's just a small.
You're talking about the Young Street
The
entrance.
Young Street, yeah, they could, a little more grand in
Yeah.
some way. So that if you go there as a resident, you feel.
yeah. Yeah, we can raise that to where it really, enlivens that entire quarter as we go south on Young, yeah.
Okay, so I think we're hearing, that's a comment for you. Are there other comments then from anybody?
I have a small one. I
ahead.
like the sloping roof on the top. I would encourage you to make it more dramatic. Because I'm afraid that at that high up in the air, it's gonna get lost a little bit.
Yeah,
And I think it makes an interesting statement other than just the typical flat. roof.
yeah.
Hey, Bob, do you
And
do
the other-
do the same thing with the aluminum? On see on the top there? You do the same thing with that aluminum trellising?
The
So
framework,
you started talking about the top of the roof, going with this.
Yeah.
Do you do that with that to kind of bring it down?
At the top of the podium.
Yeah.
Well, maybe-
can you go to the 2D elevation?
But you do it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And you'll go back.
Back to the full elevation, next one, yeah. I mean, you pitch these things to kind of pick up on that.
I'd be careful. I kind of like that way.
Really
It could be
agree.
different. Yeah, I think how the tower's meeting the sky and that articulation is kind of that
I would,
element
I
that's
think
kind of a-
little bits, you could fall quickly into it. More is not better
Yeah,
situation.
but to Bob's point, I think even this view is taken from about 500 feet away to the north.
Yeah.
And you do see the slopes quite a bit, but I think that that's something valued to study. And again, this view isn't at grade.
Right.
This view was taken about 20 feet off of grade.
Yeah, right.
So if we take ourselves and push ourselves back to the north, maybe in the parking lot of Holiday Inn, and
You're not gonna see that roof line.
Well,
Because it's set back.
It's
It's got
worth
stairs.
studying.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at.
I think if we pull ourselves, if we're right at street level, so we're not. gonna see
Okay,
it.
definitely, you can look at that.
I do appreciate the updates that you made to the textures
Yeah.
and colors. It just creates more contrast and more just
Yeah.
vibrant and dynamic.
Okay, so it's a positive on that, Trudy, yeah.
Are you within the SID or the Discovery District SID?
We're in the Mohawk Market District.
Okay, so it's not a SID district? My question is particularly around the Young Street entrance, the safety. We're still in an area of transition and understanding what is around and what has not been developed. I think this tower is very complementary, particularly to what happened around the Commons. With the Kaufman development, with the prior Kaufman
Mhm.
developments. So I think it's very complementary. My only issue or just question, particularly when the leasing starts, is perception of safety entrance on Young.
Hmm.
And just something to consider when particularly you're the lease out, particularly maybe to women. Coming in through an alley entrance may not be something that is very appealing. So just thinking of the lighting or
Yeah.
how you really showcase that, just consider that as you're moving forward.
Okay,
And that would be the only, for somebody walking, that would be the only residential entrance? Or would
Well,
it-
actually, we're extending it to all the way to the west, to that passageway. And all these, speaking of lighting, I mean, I think, we're gonna light, we haven't shown you any lighting study, but the lighting is gonna be fairly intense in all these areas. But to your point, I think that, there will be a passage, an entrance. And that's what I was saying earlier, that southeast corner of the pink area will be more developed. That wall will probably be pulled in a little bit more to broaden that to begin with. Excuse me. And that will be an additional pedestrian entrance. We're anticipating that that'll be more the pedestrian entrance and not where residents and visitors that are coming with vehicles are gonna be coming in off of Young Street. And then it's all, I don't think you can see them, but it's all controlled with gates. And I mean, it's fairly well controlled with gates and cameras. There'll be quite a bit of
Okay.
storage.
I think you've got a comment on that. Yes, Otto?
Let me go back to the other side of the building where the encroachment is. The encroachment
Yeah.
on 4th Street. What have been the discussions with the various businesses for the 4th Street side as to if that would affect them, if it food deliveries and other things like that into those restaurants?
Well,
Sexual.
they're aware of,
Just,
they are aware of what we're doing.
Yeah. I think
They have no issue.
I think what we're doing is try to elevate the whole neighborhood around us. By putting the marketplace in that neighborhood will make it more mixed use environment. We're not trying to compete with our neighboring restaurant and other environment. Actually, what we're trying to do is try to preserve them so that 4th and Ridge Street corridor in the future can be a better serving neighborhood.
I think part here to answer they're welcoming the idea of having a back door.
okay,
I don't think they can go out the back, can they?
No,
Right now,
Right
they
now,
they
they're
have.
Right, so this, now, what would be fun down there, that makes your alleyway or corridor or whatever it is, look better is if somehow or another the backs of their buildings get kind of
You're reading,
cleaned up.
you're reading minds, we're
So-
talking about graphics, we're talking about lighting.
And lighting is,
Yeah.
is almost number one, and
Yeah.
then number two is
Yeah.
fix up, yeah.
So is that intended to be for vehicles or just for?
No, that's just pedestrian.
Just pedestrian?
Now, what's that going to be? I mean, is that? gonna
Yeah,
be-
why would you even?
Is that gonna be a public open space or is it gonna be gated?
No, I mean,
It seems
that-
like a place where people are gonna hang out.
Well, I think anytime that you create a smaller space, it becomes almost a hangout. But I think that we're opening it up, and I think that if you take a look at
The north part of it
North
is
part,
wide.
right, but it's only about, what, 6 feet wide?
it's more than that, but what I'm getting at is that west corner of the pink
Yeah.
is getting pulled back in, Bob.
Yeah, I get that.
So we're making it broader. Now, the question is, how broad should we make it? Right now, the alley is only 15 feet. That's there. So I mean, we're 16 feet.
You mean Zettler Street?
Yeah,
But that's not on Zettler Street.
right. But what I'm saying is Steve, is that we're gonna try to make it a little bit broader than what it is right now, to where it becomes a little bit more of a plaza.
I think it can be an interesting space. I just, part of it is how it gets handled.
Yeah, sure. And again, to the answer to the question, the backs of the building, they'll have back doors, one. Two, the backs of the buildings will be treated in some way, whether, we skin them, paint them, fix them, do some artwork there. That's an
Something will have to be
opportunity, that's an
done.
opportunity for art
Okay.
right there.
I think that's something for you guys to work out.
Yeah.
What, any other questions or comments?
I did have a comment about the the alley that's being created with the encroachment.
Yeah.
So on the bottom, on the south portion of it, where we see the red line, that's showing that last building is encroaching to the east. And so is there any way to get out from the alley on the south?
Yeah, it'll be roughly a 5 or 6 foot opening. Again, we're trying to work that out right now. terms of, we're working with Walker with the parking garage design,
Okay,
and they're pushing and pulling right
I see.
now. So we're hoping that that'll be quite a bit of an opening.
Because if not, and you feel that it's too tight and
Yeah.
awkward, and maybe that's so long that you could have crime or problems weighing the
Yeah.
depth of it, you might just want to, maybe have the, the new alley, maybe only just half in terms of
Okay,
stopping, let's just say where the purple stops or
Yeah.
something. Because if it's very tight and it's very long and nobody's gonna be back there because there's no,
that's a
there
valuable
are
point.
no
That's a.
back doors. So,
And there's nothing you gotta have windows on that south space of the
No.
right,
south part of there.
so it just might be more practical, and as Trudy was talking about concerns about crime and safety.
Yeah.
It might be easier to control it, light it, it's pushed back more at the commercial side. It could become a little patio or something with landscape or public art, so it's just something to think about, what can be controlled and how functional it is for the whole length.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's worth evaluating.
Okay, so you're gonna look at the alley and you're gonna look at, you've had some comments about the entrance. Are there any other comments in general sense that people want to throw out?
I think
Anything?
it's awesome.
I think it's an interesting, comment. I love the, descriptors on this, Roman brick too. I mean, I just was, it's very, kind of, literary, romantic, and what was it, mysterious and, among other things. So I don't think we've been confronted with mysterious brick. I love the pattern thing that they put, that was very interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're gonna build it that way or not, but I guess we get to see.
that's what the goal is.
Anything from the audience, any thoughts, comments? Anything else from this group?
I just had one.
Okay, go
Where you
ahead.
have the parking, and it's where the masonry is, the parking and the windows, the
Yeah.
openings. Are you intending those to be screened, glazing, a combination?
No, that's a great question. It's intended to be an open garage.
Mhm.
However, there will be framework that'll appear as though there are windows. And I'll give you some examples of one of my favorite projects in Sarasota is that way. It looks like an apartment building, but it's a parking garage. So we'll do it that way. We'll have some screening, but it'll be open area.
Right, and then the screening will not be just red as black voids, it will be,
No.
the way you're treating it, it will just kind of have the illusion that it might be glazing or something
Yeah.
that's translucent.
The point is that, those openings are somewhere in the order of 8 to 10 feet tall.
Mhm.
They'll have a lower portion of it. That'll be where the screening will be, and the upper portion will be open.
Oh.
So it'll appear almost as open flame.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you so
very
much.
much.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, very good. Louis, where do we go? You want us to approve your staff?
Yeah, so we had ad murals, projecting signs, sign refacings, or ad murals and signs. Some slight storefront modifications, nothing major, a repair of an existing facade. Some small doorway modifications, ad murals, so 21 cases.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve these staff approvals, please? Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Tony. Okay, any questions for Louis on any of these things? We've got to keep a close eye on him. We don't want him off. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, with that being said. You wanted to discuss, I figure while we wait for Bob to come down, you kind of wanted to
We
talk about.
probably should.
Yeah, so before we vote, there's been a lot of talk in the media lately and stuff about the ice house building.
Yeah.
You kind of wanted to address that, or discuss it, or?
Otto's going to take off for a second too. We'll wait for you to come back, Otto. Take your time. So how's everybody enjoying spring? We had a great big frost on our yard this morning.
Wow.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, I can't wait for it.
We have a house in Michigan, in the upper peninsula of Michigan. That's pretty good. It's over the Mackinac Bridge.
Yeah.
That's cold country. 2 degrees colder here than the temperature was up there this morning.
Wow.
Isn't that fun? No, it was 30 degrees here. I got it on my phone and it was 32 up there.
They get a lot of snow up there this year.
I think they got just a fair amount. I don't think they were over, no, it wasn't like out west. Yeah.
Do you go there often to the,
Just in the summer.
in the summer?
Yeah.
You don't drive on the ice from.
No, they do. I don't. But we're gonna wait a second for Otto.
I've got,
And we're gonna talk about the ice house situation.
I've got friends that live in Petoskey, so we get up
Yeah.
there early. It's going.
Oh, yeah, that's nearby.
Otto's not out there shaking hands and talking to the media, is he?
Oh, he's probably, yeah, no, I don't know what he's doing.
He's in the restroom.
He went to the
Probably
restroom.
went to the bathroom. Thank you, everybody, for your comments today. These are good projects.
Yeah.
all three of them.
Exciting. Yeah.
They were all good, actually.
Yes.
Really creative.
Had the media show up. They haven't done that. Since
And a good crowd too. We're all people now.
No, I
And you know what, it was so funny, because last week we had no cases. I mean, last month.
Yeah.
It's been sink or swim.
We have to prove the minutes for that one, no cases.
Okay.
But then the month before we had them anyway.
There we go.
I was going back to go to one day.
I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe it was 10.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
All right.
Okay, let's
Let me
go.
give you the background on the.
Yeah.
plaza. So, there was a big windstorm, as you recall, gosh, about a month and a half ago now, real strong winds, when they had like this hurricane for, I don't know, strong winds. And the, ice house building is, it's actually two portions of building. Let me see if I can pull it up here. So, there's a taller portion in the rear and a newer, and a shorter portion in the front. Jacqueline, oh, she's gone. Jacqueline Lehman did some research for me. She's historic preservation portion of our team. And the front structure was built, I think, 3 or 4 years before the rear structure. And this was an ice house. It's where they would store ice in the wintertime, lakes and stuff, I suppose. And so when that strong windstorm happened, this portion up here of the parapet wall, because the winds were going east, fell down. And if you go out there and you visit, there's quite a bit of rubble, and the street's been closed ever since. A lot of bricks, a lot of like terracotta pieces came down, pretty much down to the top of the windows. So the applicant requested, they had an engineering study done, and the engineer indicated that when the building was built, it wasn't done properly, I suppose. And there weren't any kind of connecting, I don't know what they're called, but connecting metal that connects the exterior brick to the interior brick. So there's a really strong interior brick structure wall and then the exterior brick. And water had been getting in there, I guess, and it collapsed. And they said that, as you can see, the brickwork on the building has had issues. They've been trying to tuck point and stuff, but still that took place. So the city requested a independent study as well. We always do that, just like we did with the main bar. And unfortunately, the result of that study was the same, that the building had been constructed in a manner that the bricks were not properly connected. The other thing that the other study said was that you couldn't take down the back part without the front part because the buildings were structurally intertwined. We were questioning that because they were built at separate times. Apparently, that the secondary engineering report indicated the same. And I'm paraphrasing here. I hope I'm representing everything correctly. So with that said, the buildings were deemed to be, have some serious structural issues. I guess there's other issues with the parapet wall and the masonry on other portions of the building. So an emergency hazard building order was issued for the building. There's two kind of orders we get. One's an unsafe building. If it's an unsafe building, it still comes back to the commission. You still have purview over the demolition. If an emergency hazard order is issued, then the building is deemed in such a dangerous state that it skips the commissions and it's handled by the chief building official. And so that's where it's at now. So my understanding is that these buildings are in the process of coming down. I've been driving by every day after work just to check on it. All the windows are out.
All the windows are out.
All the windows are out, yeah. So it's very fortunate. There is still one portion of the building in the back. There's a third building here that is not part of it. I do not believe that is part of the demolition request at this time.
So, that the north side of the building, that's how the building is built. It's a concrete frame with an 8-inch thick infill wall that braces it in a typical industrial construction. The side of the building got an extra 4 inches of brick added to it.
It's a veneer.
As a veneer, which it appears as though it may not be attached very well. But this thing fell down due to absolute neglect, and I would call it demolition by neglect. I think the owner wanted the building to come down. It's unfortunate that part of it fell. It's very fortunate nobody got hurt. But I read both of the engineers' reports, and pretty clearly they were, let's do a report that shows that the building is unsafe. The second report, the independent city report, says that the concrete structure of the building is remarkably strong. Neither report says that the buildings needed to be tied together. They said perhaps they're not tied together. I don't know why they would need to be tied together. They were built independently of each other.
Wouldn't have been.
Exactly. So what's happened here is the owner is rewarded by being able to tear the building down because of his or her abject neglect over many years. And I think that's unfortunate. I think there should be a better process. I was somewhat surprised to find out.
I'm sorry.
I was somewhat surprised to find out that this building doesn't get critical observation reports. I thought. What do you mean? I was told by the city that it's outside the district where they're required.
The boundary is the middle of not.
Yeah, can we get
No kidding.
To see that? I think that's just crazy.
I
Not me now, but can you research that for us and show us
might have the net.
why this building doesn't have critical observation report?
Yeah, I don't know how that boundary was
I don't either.
created.
It may be that that's what the good that can come out of this is maybe we need to make sure that gets fixed.
Well, I think the other thing, nobody inspected this over the years, apparently, and it was able to basically fall into
But
neglect.
owners have an obligation to keep their buildings safe.
Right, but if nobody inspects it, nobody knows about it, maybe. That's all I'm saying. So the answer.
Report talk about a fix. I mean, how would you repair this? How would you make it?
Well, they said that
Here's the map.
you can't, I forget.
Economically
exactly what it was, but it was said, you can't take the facade off. Well, of course you can take the facade off. It's not structural. What do you do with it then? I don't know. You have a building that looks like a concrete frame industrial building. It's the warehouse district, that's the whole concept of this area. And we're taking out one of the biggest warehouses.
I'm kind of interested. I would have thought it would be more valuable with that substantial structure there, so that somebody could remodel it as a vacant lot. Now, do they come to us then to decide what to do with that lot, right? Otherwise, they just put grass on it. Is that the idea?
Any kind of improvement, parking or anything at all would have to come to the commission.
Okay, well, I guess what we wanted to get to, just so everybody understands it, is this did not come to us. And in a way, maybe that's good, because we could have been right between a rock and a hard spot, because then we have to decide whether we want to let somebody tear it down. And of course, they say they have to tear it down, I don't know, because they can't afford to fix it or something like
Well,
that, so.
thank you for bringing that to our attention. I saw it in the newspaper, or some clipping or something like that. And I said, oh, okay, what's But, thanks for bringing that to us and explaining the details of it, so I appreciate you doing that.
Well, yeah.
Collectively, I appreciate you.
We have been, yes, Bob's been involved in the conversation. We've been talking with Lewis about this for several weeks, so.
Bob, I don't quite understand. So I understand where it was shown and it was where the parapet, came down because of the winds. But I don't understand how that's associated with the building adjacent to it. Is that also that building?
We're just assuming it's built the same way, so it must be unsafe.
Well,
They
and/or
have
they're
not
connected.
looked to see.
Pardon?
They have not looked to see because is it a different building?
Well, they're two.
Obviously,
two
one
wings of the
inside.
same building, right? I mean, they were built maybe a slightly different time. I looked at the Sanborn maps and they don't appear to be very different in age. The facade that goes across the lower floors is all the same, so I don't know exactly what the sequence is, but there are two structures that are independently built. That are adjacent to each other.
Did you say independently built?
Yeah, they were built at some different times.
I guess I don't understand why both have to be, that doesn't make
I
sense.
don't either. It makes no sense to me at all.
Okay.
But the emergency order definitely applies to both portions because both engineers said the only possible solution is demolition.
Because they're assuming that the problem is the whole facade, not just what happened up at the parapet.
Well, that's what they're saying, yeah. And that may be true because water's been getting into that building for years. It had nothing to do with the wind. I mean, the wind might have exacerbated it, but the weakness is because of water.
Right. It would just be interesting to know if the other building, even though it's similar, just maybe because of its height or other factors, has the same problem to that extent, or that one is repairable, or.
But that's an easy answer.
Doesn't matter. They've condemned it. It's coming down.
No, it's a done deal. It's coming down.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Any other new business or old business?
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else to say about, I mean, it's, we're kind of, it is what it is, I think, a little bit. It's too bad. I mean, that's an interesting building in an interesting location too. Right at the end, of north end of Nielsen Street, that which we're just hearing about.
Right.
We're trying to fill in the holes there. And now we're gonna know.
Okay,
And Ackman Capital's the owner of those buildings
yes.
as well, that controls all those other buildings. Okay. All right. Thought I saw that in our article.
Okay, all we have left to do then is, vote for chair and vice chair. By the bylaws, we're supposed to do this vote every, year. So if anybody would like to nominate somebody or nominate themselves, please feel free.
I'll nominate Steve Whitman as the chair and Jana Manahatchee as vice chair.
I'll second.
Aye.
Okay, questions, comments, additions or deletions? I guess we're in all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry about you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, well, I gotta say, this has been a very good group deal here, so we've all gotten along very well, and I think we've gotten good things done, so. And we have a bunch of different thoughts and comments on things, and that's good too, so.
Today was
Great.
exciting. I mean, three.
It's unbelievable.
Buildings.
Yeah, really good, and different, totally different ones, and,
Here's the building.
yeah, there it is.
This is,
That's frightening.
this is what fell off. You can see all the rubble.
By the way, the side really is kind of a little bit different on the north side. I mean, that front building can be very easily a freestanding.
Yeah.
Surprising amount of terracotta. It's like this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it was like that.
I gotta run.
All right.
Good to see you.
Anything else? That's it.
Thanks very much. Very much.